Hi there. Thanks very much for tuning in. This presentation was one that I was going to present at the Cochrane Colloquium in Chile, which was sadly cancelled. This presentation is going to be about the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon and what the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon can do for the community of people interested in Cochrane and Campbell and the Collaboration for Environmental Evidence. My name's Neal Haddaway. I'm a Senior Research Fellow at the Stockholm Environment Institute here in Stockholm in Sweden. I'm also a Research Associate at the Africa Centre for Evidence at the University of Johannesburg, and I'm the Director of the Collaboration for Environmental Evidence Centre here at SEI. I'm presenting on behalf of my colleague Martin Westgate from the Australian National University, and he's based at the Vienna School of Environment and Society. The work that I'll discuss here on the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon is available. You can find more information about it on the eshackathon.org website and the ES Hackathon handle on Twitter. You can find Martin and I both on Twitter if you're interested in things related to evidence synthesis and tools. So a quick statement on conflicts of interest and acknowledging our funders. I can state that I have no actual or potential conflict of interest in relation to this presentation, other than the fact that the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon is something that I founded together with Martin Westgate, so it's obviously in my interests. And that work has been funded so far by the Mistra Council for Evidence-Based Environmental Management here in Sweden, the Australian National University Vienna School of Environment and Society, and the University of New South Wales in Sydney. It's also been partly funded by the R Consortium, the Africa Centre for Evidence, and will be funded in the future by the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation. So thanks to those funders. So I wanted to briefly just talk about what evidence synthesis technology is. This is a term that we use. Technology is obviously the collection of techniques, skills, methods, and processes used in the production of goods or services and the accomplishment of objectives such as scientific investigation. And that's the basis that we're using when we talk about evidence synthesis technology. In one respect, technology depends on when you ask. Systematic reviews several decades ago were a novel technology, and now they've become standardized, so we don't really see them as technology. But some of the tools that we describe are novel to us now, but they might not be so novel in the future. So what we're talking about when I refer to evidence synthesis technology is any tool that supports evidence synthesis to overcome challenges. Primarily, those technologies are software-based right now, but within the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon, as I discuss in a bit, we also talk about frameworks that are not software tools, but new ways of visualizing and conducting evidence synthesis, perhaps. So in one respect, I'm talking about computer assistance. These might also be referred to as technology-assisted reviews. And the reason it's useful to think about technology in this respect is that we might want to produce tools or frameworks that help to build capacity for conducting systematic reviews. So that might be around training. It might be around helping people to keep records and be transparent better in their systematic reviews or easier. And it might just be about increasing the efficiency, transparency, or rigor of systematic reviews using tools and frameworks. But on the other end of the spectrum, we're also talking about the kind of technologies that allow automation of parts or whole of the systematic review process. So in this case, the reviews are driven by technology rather than just it being an assistance. But within this framework, I'll be talking about the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon from both a software perspective and a novel framework perspective. So this just gives you a bit of background. But the reason that evidence synthesis technology is important is that, as we all know, we're increasingly having issues around data management with systematic reviews. We have bigger, more complex, more messy data. Often it's hierarchical and interrelated if you think about very large systematic review or systematic map databases. We also, as we become more digital, have issues with version control, multiple different file types. We also have issues of backing up and being secure with our data. We're increasingly collaborating in teams across the world, so being able to work remotely is increasingly important. And there are issues around trying to be as transparent as possible, and a movement called the Open Synthesis movement, which relates to trying to apply open science principles to evidence synthesis. And as we try to be more transparent and try to report more information, there's a risk that data management then becomes much more complex. We want to try to make this as easy as possible for our readers and users of our systematic reviews and the data that they hold. And then there's also pragmatically an issue of literature explosion. Anyone working with systematic reviews knows that the amount of studies that they have to include or screen, at least, is increasing, in some cases exponentially. And being able to deal with that efficiently and in a rigorous way means we really need to make use of evidence synthesis technology. And to highlight that, this is a series of graphs that I've put together based on systematic maps on the left and systematic reviews on the right that have been published by the Collaboration for Environmental Evidence over the last 5 years or so. And for each line, so each line is a systematic review or systematic map, and it shows the search results from that review or map plotted against the year that each result was published. So, for example, we can see this green systematic map on the left has all of the search results up to 2018, and you can see that the number of records in that set of search results is increasing exponentially over time. And so these search results that then need to be screened and analyzed are becoming increasingly voluminous. There's an increasing problem with the amount of effort that needs to go into screening search results over time. And some of these systematic reviews I was involved in conducting back in 2012. 3 of them I started in 2012, 1 systematic map and 2 systematic reviews. And based on the number of search results that we would have found in 2012 compared to now, those systematic review projects probably would have been impossible for us to complete definitely within the same time frame and the same budget. So this graph just shows that as time goes on, systematic reviews and systematic maps are becoming more and more expensive because we're dealing with more and more information. So we need technology to help us to be efficient and perhaps to actually take some of that effort, those tasks, away from us to make life a little bit easier. Interestingly, there are a couple that are actually showing a bit of an asymptote. We don't quite know why that's happening, but really interesting to look into those in a bit more detail. Perhaps they're not so interesting anymore and people have stopped publishing. But on the whole, we're facing an exponential explosion of information, which I find equally interesting and terrifying. So I just wanted to spend some time talking about the status quo of evidence synthesis technology, primarily focusing here on software. There's a number of tools that help us to get through different steps of the review process, and I'm just going to give some examples. So if you're planning a review, the tool that we put together called Predictor helps you to estimate the amount of time your systematic review is going to take based on the number of search results you have and the methods that you intend to use. There are a huge number of review management tools. We conducted a systematic review of systematic review tools back in 2018 or 2017, towards the end of 17, and we found 23 tools, and we know there are many more than that now. Some examples are EpiReviewer, which many people are probably familiar with, the relatively new free tool called SysRev, and the free tool Kadima that's specific to environmental systematic reviews. There's tools specific to searching. LitSearcher is a tool that helps you to build search strategies. There are tools that help with deduplication and screening, and these are just a few examples. There's Colander, RevTools, and Ryan, maybe some of you are familiar with. And then fewer tools that help to automate data extraction and critical appraisal, although there are some. One in particular is Robot Reviewer that helps to automate data extraction and critical appraisal in randomized control trials in the field of medicine. And synthesis, and I have talked in another session about metaphor and some of its functions. But there are various tools that help you to conduct and automate some of these synthesis activities, and you'll be aware of many more. But this is just to show that there are a large number of examples. There's also tools for updating your search results. Microsoft Academic or Microsoft Academic Graph is showing real promise here. But there are problems with the status quo. There are many, many tools that have been developed to help with systematic reviews, and Chris Marshall has put together a great website called Systematic Review Tools that aims to list most of these and provide information about what the tools do and which steps of the review process they help with. But one of the problems with these tools is that they are often either paywalled, so you have to pay quite a lot of money for them, or they're not supported in the long term. So tools that have been produced for free might go out of date, they might stop functioning because the broader landscape that they work in changes, and adapting to those changes costs money. Tools that have been produced either in fixed-term projects or for free can't really afford to be supported in the long term. Another issue is there's a lot of redundancy. There are an increasing number of people around the world who are producing these tools, and when they don't work together, you end up having a lot of people producing similar tools that cover the same thing. This is not only a waste of resources, but also confusing to people who want to know which tools are the best to use. If they have a choice of 5 and they don't really understand how they differ, this can be quite confusing. Another issue is that there's very limited interoperability. So at the moment, if you want to conduct part of your review in one tool and then part in another tool, the file types that you get out often don't speak to one another. Even within standardized citation formats, those files can differ in a way that causes problems if you want to move between tools. And another issue is that these tools are frequently unvalidated, or they've been validated, and what I mean here is tested to see how well they work. They've been validated by the developers, which obviously has a conflict of interest. Another issue is that because some of the tools work in very specific subsets of or specific disciplines with specific types of evidence, if they are validated and then not validated with the right scope of evidence, it can mean that they appear not to work well, even though they actually do within their specific subset. And Robot Reviewer is one that's unfortunately being validated in a poor way. So the International Collaboration for the Automation of Systematic Reviews has been running for several years. And it's a group of people who are interested in systematic review automation or evidence synthesis technology. And one of their early meetings established a set of principles called the Vienna Principles that aim to improve the way that we work in producing tools for automation. And I've lifted out and paraphrased just a couple that I wanted to highlight. One is that we should be able to use different tools at different stages of the review process. People shouldn't be tied into one tool. Another principle was that those tools should be interoperable to allow working at different stages with different tools. That to cover the whole steps, the whole process of an evidence synthesis, we need collaboration across the community. That people should ideally try to make their code open source so that it's freely usable by all, and that we should have as wherever possible, standardized validation so that similar tools can be validated independently in comparable ways. So because of these issues and because of an increasing interest in evidence synthesis technology, Martin Westgate and I established the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon in 2017. And the ESH aims to bring together interested researchers, practitioners, and coders to discuss and develop new open source technologies for evidence synthesis applications. And our mission is to support development, testing, and promotion of new software and workflows, to build networks and capacity among researchers, practitioners, and developers, to advocate for open synthesis. And our goal is to create workflows that are open, that are reproducible, based on best available technology and methods, and widely supported by the community. So these are the underlying goals and aims and ethos of the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon. And the way that we conduct these hackathons, they are typically 3-day interactive workshops. We in recent hackathons have had a coding stream where people produce, develop, or test software, and a discussion stream where people produce, develop, or test frameworks. These might not be related to coding or to software production. They might be, for example, related to the future of evidence synthesis or how to make data more synthesizable. One of the key things that we try to have in our hackathon, which differs from other hackathons often, is that they're not competitive. Typically within a hackathon, you would have multiple different groups trying to produce software to answer the same need, and they would all be competing and someone would win. But we try to encourage a collaborative environment where people can collaborate within groups and move between groups as and when they're needed. We recognize that in our small community that we've assembled so far, we often have lots of people with different skills in different languages, different steps of the review process, some coders and some evidence synthesis experts and a range of people in between. So trying to encourage a collaborative and flexible environment where people can move around and help one another really helps to produce a large number of different tools that help to get to completion within a short period of time. And you can see the group up here on the right from the recent evidence synthesis hackathon in Canberra. Some of those faces you might know. But we aim in assembling our group of hackers to have balance from a range of different backgrounds. Some people with evidence synthesis expertise, some people from decision making, some people from business. We aim to have a range of different career stages, so there are early career researchers as well as some really well-known people who we were really lucky to have, and we're obviously really lucky to have these amazing early career researchers as well. But one of the key feedbacks that we have is that it's great to spend so much time with people who have so much experience at an early career stage. And for the more senior people there, it's really great to see such exciting new skills being shared and made available. We also try to have people from a range of different geographical locations. We are obviously cognizant of the fact that we're assembling people from all over the world and we need to be careful about our carbon footprint. So in the future, we're hoping to have regional hubs all having hackathons at the same time rather than one globally. We'll see how well that works. But one other key aspect is to have representation from low and middle income countries. So at the recent hackathon in Canberra, we were really blessed to have very generous funding from the Africa Centre for Evidence and the University of Johannesburg Faculty of Humanities, which allowed a number of representatives from the African continent to come along, which was really great. Although we did have issues with visas, which is an ongoing problem for conferences. So if you're interested in that, then please contact us. We also try to have a range of diversity in our hackers from lots of different aspects of diversity. So the progress to date is that we've had one hackathon in Stockholm with 29 participants. They produced 9 apps when there were 2 discussion groups that produced ideas for draft papers. We then had a mini hackathon in Stockholm as well, where we brought back 6 participants who'd worked on the EviAtlas app to bring that to minimum viable product stage. And we produced 2 papers, one which has now been published and one that's still in preparation. The second major hackathon that we had, as I said, was in Canberra in Australia in 2019. We had 46 participants here. They produced 7 apps, and there were 2 discussion groups that produced draft papers as well. We have another hackathon planned in 2020. If you're interested, please get in contact. This will be in Ottawa at the Environmental Evidence Summit in June. It will be 2 days before the Environmental Evidence Summit, which is the Collaboration for Environmental Evidence conference that lasts 3 days. So this will be a 2-day hackathon open to everybody, whether you're interested in the environment or not. And you can come along to the conference afterwards if you're interested. But if you happen to be in Toronto, or if you can get to Toronto, please do contact us. We'd be really interested to have you there. And then we also have another hackathon at a as yet undisclosed location in October 2020. And we have one planned for 2021 already as well, in collaboration with Wolfgang Wichtbauer in the Netherlands somewhere in the summer or autumn of 2021. So watch this space. And so far we've had about 100,000 euros pledged for these hackathons and the projects related to them. So we're getting an increasing amount of recognition and funding. We're hoping that to carry on as well. So a couple of examples are from the discussion stream from the recent hackathon. This was a project aimed at making primary research more synthesizable. And this discussion stream spent a couple of days thinking about what is synthesizability. How do you make things more synthesizable in terms of record discovery, screening, data extraction, validity assessment, and analysis? What do we mean by readily synthesizable? Do we mean by humans, by machine, and what does that look like? What are the barriers and incentives to making primary research more synthesizable as well? And how might we institutionalize and build awareness around making research more synthesizable? So this was a paper that's in draft at the moment. And some examples of the tools that have been produced are here. If you want to know more about them, please go to the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon website at eshackathon.org, and you can see the projects at /projects. In another presentation I was planning to give at Cochrane that's online, I talk about EviAtlas, Grey Literature Reporter, and Metaphor Reports and Metadat. But you can also find on our website more information about other projects, including Forrester, Metaverse, RobVis, and Research Weaving. So loads of really exciting tools that are still in development or various stages of availability. You can get involved in the Evidence Synthesis Hackathon in a number of ways. You can propose coding or discussion projects. So if you think there's an area where we need technology, frameworks or software, please get in contact with us and propose them. You can find which tools are being produced so far, and you can use them, and you can test them. Please provide feedback. People are really keen to make their tools as usable as possible. You can apply to join a future hackathon. I've said already where some of those hackathons are taking place, so please get in contact if you'd really like to take part. For each hackathon, we have an open application period, so people can apply to take part. The reason we can't accept everyone is that we try to keep numbers down to 50 or below, just to make it manageable. So hopefully there'll be space for everybody to join to some degree. We also have the option of joining remotely. Several people have joined remotely to the last hackathon. If you're really interested in a hackathon, you can contact us and talk about co-hosting a hackathon, particularly 2021 and beyond. We're really keen to find partners who'd like to help us run a hackathon regionally. And if you are a funder and you have an interest in helping us in our mission, please consider funding an Evidence Synthesis Hackathon. And in particular, if you'd like to help us support our aim to increase representation from low and middle income countries, please contact us and help these great people to take part. Thanks very much for your time. If you'd like to know more, please check out our Twitter handles or visit the website at eshackathon.org. Thanks.